Good evening. Let's start this evening with a bit of brain gym. So just bring your arms out, roll them backwards, roll them forwards. Come on, let's start this evening. Let's get energized. It's been a long day of work for most of you. The beautiful spring weather is out. Spring has sprung. Let's bit of brain gym. Rolling arms forward, rolling arm backwards. One arm forward, one arm backwards, other arm forward. Come on, join in everybody. Let's join in, come on. One arm forward, one backwards. One arm forward, one arm backwards. Let's get the energy levels up. Let's get the energy levels up, come on. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. And just side to side, side to side, side to side. Brilliant. Just clap your hands underneath your leg. That's good. That's good. Just kicking your leg out if you can. Kicking your leg out if you can. Bit of a stretch. Kicking the leg out if you can. Bit of a shake. Bit of a shake. And a big woo! Good. Awesome. Fantastic. And just a bit of a shake. If you haven't got your pen and paper already, go and get your pen and paper. Get pen and paper, because this evening is going to be interactive. It's going to be powerful. You're going to learn some awesome stuff this evening. Some fantastic stuff we're going to cover this evening. We're going to cover behavioural experiments. So get your pen, get your paper, get your game head on, and get ready to rock and roll and learn some powerful, thought-provoking stuff. As always, what we're doing tonight is for educational purposes only. We're not intending to treat anybody. All treatment plans are based on case formulation. And I always recommend people use the skills based on their experience or expertise. So if you're a personal trainer, you use the skills based on what you do as a trainer. If you're a dentist, you use them based on what you do there. And so on and so forth for your coach. So, as always, tonight's seminar is purely educational. I'm not intending to treat anybody because I don't know you and I haven't done any case formulation. Yet in saying that, whatever you do, whether you're a coach, a teacher, a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, I'm sure you'll take a lot out of this evening. We have a fantastic evening lined up. Now, let's start with a scenario. I have a scenario for you. You've got your pen, paper. You haven't got your pen and paper. Go get your paper now. Go now. Go get it. I'm joking. You don't want to. It's entirely up to you. But if you can, get your pen and paper. Now, I have a scenario to set the scene. Scenario to set the scene. So let's listen in. Let's say you were walking with two of your best friends. Take your two best friends. You're 10 years of age. Go back to when you were 10 years of age. And you're walking through the park with your two best friends at 10 years of age. And out of nowhere, you come across a dog. Okay? This dog here runs across the park. Okay, there we go. There we go. And this dog, as a 10-year-old, one of you had the same type of dog, and it was loving, it was your best friend, it was cuddly, and one of you had a negative experience with a similar type of dog. You got bitten by it. Okay? And one of you didn't have any experience with that dog at all. And when you have two friends and you see the dog, obviously the person with the experience positively with the dog is going to have an association. The person who had the experience where they got bitten by the dog is going to have a different experience, a different association. The person who had no experience at all with the dog will obviously have more of a neutral emotion towards the dog. Now, let's say, for example, 20 years goes by and you have a reunion with the two friends you're walking through the park, and then you see the same type of dog, maybe not the same dog because 20 years later it probably won't be alive, but you see the same type of dog all those years later. How do you think you would react in that situation? How do you think that you guys would react in that situation? The person with the experience, the loving experience with dog, that reinforced that experience walking through the park as a 10-year-old, and the dog, they cuddle it, they're going to react. How do you think they'll react? Well, their schema, their belief, their association of that dog is going to be A positive one would think. The person who got bitten by the dog, then got chased by the dog again, as a 10-year-old, obviously is going to have reservations based on their experience. The person who didn't have any experience whatsoever and didn't even notice it when they saw the dog again will be more neutral. So experience shapes our beliefs. So you could then have a conversation with your friends, your two friends, about whether the dog's dangerous. One of you say it's dangerous, one of you say, well, I don't know, either way, and one says, no, it's loving, it's great. And you can hypothesize various scenarios as you're walking through the park or contemplating walking through the park again, and you see the same type of dog out there. You can all have conversations, hypothesize. One could say, well, it's dangerous, we should go the other way. One of you might say, well, I'm going to go that way, I'm going to stroke the dog. And one thinks, well, whatever. So experience shapes our reality, our beliefs, our schema, and association to a certain experience. Now, tonight we're going to cover behavioural experiments. It's going to be the first part of several seminars in the area of behavioural experiments. We've got enough time to do the first part this evening and take away what you will. Then we're going to do other parts too as well. And you can watch this part as often as you like and get your head around it, learn it. It's entirely up to you. And then obviously as we go along, we'll extend the process and do more learning, because it is an extensive and broad area and a lot to cover in a short time. So we're going to break it down to manageable chunks to learn. And we can go from there. So the definition for a behavioural experiment is it's a planned experiential activities based on experimentation and observation. The design is derived directly from a cognitive formulation of the problem. And the primary purpose is to obtain new information, to test the validity of the existing beliefs, and then construct and test new adaptive beliefs. New adaptive beliefs. The key is to test the validity of the existing belief, and then through experiential we can test new beliefs, and then we can make a judgment and assessment and get our head round over various hypotheses, which we'll talk about throughout the seminar. So an experience, it's experiential, it's planned experiential activities, and they're all based on experiments and observation. So they derive directly from a cognitive formulation of a problem. And the primary purpose is to obtain new information to the validity of the existing belief, and then moving forward to construct and test more adaptive beliefs. So we're constructing and testing more adaptive beliefs, and it helps to formulate the verification of the case formulation. Now, an example is a belief might be, let's say a belief might be, if I check my body for moles, so if I'm checking for moles on a daily basis, I will be more reassured that I don't have cancer. So if I check my body for moles, I'll be more reassured that I don't have cancer. Now obviously in that situation, if I was with a client, the first thing I would do is make sure, because I'm not medically qualified, to make sure they went through a battery of testing with the specific person in that field. I wouldn't make that judgment. If someone came to me and they had an issue looking at their moles continuously, then the first thing I always do is go see someone medically qualified to make that judgment. Because what we don't want to do as therapists is take the role where we can assume ourselves. So we leave nothing to chance. Certainly I don't. So someone came along to me and had a client with a similar experience to what I'm saying now. I said, first of all, go to the GP, get a referral, and make sure that you got the all clear before we sort of move forward. But obviously all being well, and they got the eye clear, and they felt, for example, they're going to look at their moles continuously to see if they've got skin cancer. What you could do is dig a little deeper and develop an experiment. So you could ask the client to rate on a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being high and 0 being low, during a week of normal testing. So this is a basic experiment because it's okay to test the beliefs that they have to test check their moles regularly to see if there's any skin cancer developing, and what you can do is ask them to quantify the anxiety from 0 to 100 during a normal week of testing. A normal week of testing might be once every 2 or 3 hours during a day. Okay? Then what you could do is get the client to maybe look at the moles more frequently and see if the anxiety is more. So you can say, okay, if I look 3 times more than what I normally look in any given week, the moles, and I grade my anxiety, am I higher than what the anxiety was originally? So if anxiety checking 3 times a day is 70%, and you could say if I check 9 times a day in the course of a week, where is anxiety then? And then you can examine the data. You can examine the data of both outcomes, and you could look at the client's beliefs and move forward and build and integrate that into your case formulation. So the basic protocol for a behavioural experiment, the basic protocol is a negative cognition. We start with a negative cognition. It could be a negative automatic thought, it could be a belief or an assumption. Then we have a prediction for that belief, assumption, negative automatic thought. Then we can rate the strength of that prediction. Rate the strength of that prediction. Then we can rate the alternative, the hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis of the original prediction. And then we can design an experiment to test the prediction and the hypothesis. So an example for you. An example, if you sort of stay tuned and stay with me, it's a lot to cover information in a short time. You might need to watch this again, but stay with me, you'll pick it up. So a negative cognition, for example, is the world is very unfair. So I had a client who said to me, to cut a long story short, I won't go into too much detail, they said, the world is very unfair. Okay? Now, the prediction was, every time I do something for someone, they always ignore me or treat me badly. Every time I do something for someone, they ignore me, treat me badly. That was the prediction. The strength of the prediction was 70%. From 0 to 100 being high, 70%. The alternative hypothesis was, when I do something for someone, 50% will acknowledge what I did for them and thank me. And the strength of that belief as an alternative was 50%. Okay? Now, the behavioural experiment we designed was as follows. The experiment we did, we identified five nice things to do for strangers. 5 nice things to do for strangers. For example, open a door. When you're driving, maybe let someone through, change lane, or when you're driving, someone's coming out of the driveway, let them get out. It could be help someone with their shopping bags. 5 nice things that you could do for someone or strangers. And what we would do is test that amongst 15 people. Now, there's no real reason we chose 15. 15 in general, I find 12, it's maybe a good number, so to speak, which we'll go into in future seminars. No specific reason we chose 15. So 15 people, and what we did is to quantify the experience. We said when someone smiles or says thank you, that demonstrates an acknowledgement of your act of kindness. When someone smiles and says thank you, it demonstrates your act of kindness. And of those 15 people, 14 people had either smiled or said thank you, and some said both. One person didn't. Yeah, in saying that, that helped, to cut a long story short, moderate the original belief the client had, in the sense that the original belief was every time I do something for someone, it moderated it, people ignore me or treat me badly, from 70% to about very minimal. It moderated it significantly, went down. Very minimal, and it strengthened the other belief that people do acknowledge, from 50 to about 90%, so to speak. So we're not always looking for, like going bowling and bang, all the pins fall over. Sometimes it's about belief moderation, and sometimes once you've moderated a belief, then you work on another one, and so on and so forth, so to speak. So to give you an idea, we talked about, we start with the negative condition. The negative condition could be a thought, belief, assumption. The prediction, like I mentioned there, in that case, was every time I do something to someone, they react in badly, or they ignore me and they treat me badly. We have the alternative hypothesis is when I do something to someone, nice to someone, they will acknowledge me, and then we can rate that, and then we can see and the experiment, design the experiment which incorporates all that. So we incorporate hypothesis A and B, and A versus B, and then we can sort of go out and find a way to quantify that. We did in this case do 5 nice things for 15 people and see what the reaction is. A smile and a thank you will suffice to say. So you're designing the experiment with the client, the patient. It's really important to do that. One thing I want to say, by the way, before we move on tonight, one thing I want to say is a behavioural experiment is not behavioural exposure or activation. A behavioural experiment is not exposure or behavioural activation. Behavioural exposure, broadly speaking, is based on anxiety-based problems. Behavioural activation, broadly speaking, is based on problems of depression. Now, obviously we can work on that with behavioural experiment as well as, but broadly speaking, the difference is that the primary measure of change is symptom relief and behavioural change in exposure and activation. Now, it's typically graduated incrementally, so step by step, and reflection is not an integral part of activation and exposure, and the activity has well established common protocols. Now, with the behavioural experiments, it relates to any problem with dysfunction of a belief, any problem with a dysfunction of a belief attached, or primary measure of change is cognitive change. So the primary measure of change is cognitive change. We can do it frequently or single, and what we mean by that, we can do one experiment, and if the person we're working with, for example, let's say I was working with someone at one point and they had this belief that no one would go out with them. He said to me, no one would go out with them on a date, and to cut a long story short, the experiment involved doing survey as well as observation as well as the activity itself, and we, cut a long story short, he'd asked a number of people out, and some said yes, some said no, and the ones who said yes, what he said at the end of it, only did it because they felt sorry for me. Okay, and then obviously we would incorporate a new experiment for that matter to go forward, if that makes sense. They only went with me because they felt sorry for me. Okay, so then we would design on the but, and so on and so forth. Reflection is a key part of the behavioural experiment. Reflection is key. For reflection we learn, and the activity is individually designed. So when I do a behavioural experiment, I wouldn't do one similar or the same for someone I've done one before, even if it's got some similarities, the experience. So if the person, for example, had this negative assumption about someone going out of them, and what I would do with them would be different to what I would do with someone in future. It's very specific. So remember, behavioural experiment, the key points are, it relates to any problem with a dysfunction, belief attached. Any problem with a dysfunction, belief attached, the primary measure of change is cognitive change. Cognitive change is the primary measure of change, and we can measure that, like we mentioned earlier, through reflecting on the adaptive belief, and reflection is a key process, and it's very individually designed. So why would you use an experiment? Why would anyone use a behavioural experiment? Well, there's anecdotal evidence to suggest it is one of the most powerful ways for cognitive change. And you can do your own research, you can see for yourself, it's powerful. And one of the reasons it's powerful is multi-sensory. So what we're doing is it engages all senses. Visual, it engages auditory, kinesthetic and motor skills. The procedures are better for learning. We process learning through our senses. So it's really, really powerful. And belief change generally requires different memory channels for change to happen, for change to be more powerful. So to be more powerful, it's multi-sensory. So one of the key aspects we talked about is the reflection. Reflection is a key element of the behavioural experiment. Reflecting on the experiment itself is a key part of the experience. Now, one thing to think about, I'll give you this scenario. Think of this scenario for a moment. I'll give you a scenario that's not directly related to this evening, but to give you an idea of how memory can be quite selective. And I'll sort of touch on why. Let's say it's Christmas time and you were shopping. You were shopping at Christmas time. You're out there, you're shopping, it's Christmas time, and you went to 10 shops. Of those 10 shops, 9 was a fantastic experience. They were wonderful. They couldn't do enough for you. They even made you a cup of tea, got you biscuits. They really went the extra mile at those 10 shops. They really went the extra mile. They couldn't do enough for you. They went the extra mile. Now, one shop you went to was a bit rude, they were a bit obnoxious, they shortchanged you, and you felt overwhelmed, you felt upset, you felt angry about that. When you go home and see your partner, or the first person you see, and ask you how was your day and how was the shopping experience, what do you think you're going to focus on, and most people focus on anyway? Most people will focus on the bad experience. Memory can be selective and it can diminish the effects of learning. So really, by reflecting, we can learn to focus and train the mind to reflect and focus on good experiences too. In my opinion, I think, to cut a long story short, because there's time and something we can touch on at a lot of time, I think because of our primal brain being geared up to recognize threats and recognize any perceived danger. All those years ago we had dinosaurs roaming the earth, tribes, survival, and our survival instinct, we still primarily, when we experience an external event, primarily react in the same way. Fight, flight, freeze, the amygdala, part of the mind, fight, flight, freeze. We still pretty much react in that way to a certain extent. So survival instinct is quite strong. And in a way, the threat activation system, and obviously nature, nurture, some people can adapt or experience certain emotions easier than other people, but all things being equal, from a human perspective point of view, survival is key. So in certain situations, then we can be really selective, especially when the belief holds such emotional intensity. Let me give you an example how we can pick up a belief. Let's say, for example, you were flying. You're on an airline and you're flying, and you're on this plane, okay, and you're traveling, and out of nowhere you hit a moment's turbulence, okay? What do you think you could potentially believe about flying? You start hitting turbulence, okay? In that moment, you could pick up a negative belief towards flying, and you build an association. Plane could crash or whatever, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't always take a great deal of time. And I guess the more intense the emotion is connected to the belief, the assumption, the more challenging it is, because then you get someone telling you that, okay, flying, logically flying is safe. The safest form of transport, we've heard all that before. Yet our primal brain recognizes that and sees that threat and sees that association, processes the association that it has with that moment. So you could have flown for 1,000 hours in a plane and you watched movies and ate and drank and had a good time, enjoyed yourself and looked forward to the destination. Yet that moment of turbulence carries so much emotional intensity, the experience thereafter and the association you have at an unconscious level, even though someone's telling you consciously it's safe, so on and so forth, is negative, so to speak. You have a negative association. So that shows you how mind generally works in that way. So learning is key, and reflection. And I don't know if you've done this before. If you haven't, you can email me this information on the Lewin-Kolb learning cycle, experiential learning cycle. We did this when I did teacher training. We did the Lewin-Kolb experiential learning cycle, and without going into too much detail, this emphasis is in the behavioural experiment, where we, for example, we plan the experiment. So the experiment is planned, and we'll touch on how we plan it in more detail in this seminar and beyond in other seminars. Yet we look at what can we discover. So it's about discovery and learning. It's not necessarily about trying to change the person's condition or belief in that sense. It's about moderating it and changing it through discovery. We plan it whether the belief is true, hypothesize, we look at how much the client can tolerate, and we look at the permutation of what might happen in the experiment. But then we experience the experiment. We experience it. So, mentioned about the checking the mole, the experience of measuring anxiety for a week. Measure the anxiety, that's the experience. So we learn from experience and association, then we observe. And the observation is the results. Observe the anxiety, observe the thoughts, what happened. We've checked it so many times, we've checked it another time. We observe, and then we can reflect on the overall experience and reflect on the data. Where are we? Let's look at the belief. Is the initial belief moderated? Is the adaptive belief? Where are we with that? And that cycle is quite a powerful way to make that transition through an experience. We'll have situations where we might have believed one thing at one point in our life, and then we believe something different at another point in our life for one reason or the other. So really, exposing someone to a certain situation, experience, and discovery to a point that they're comfortable doing that and they're okay doing that is a great way to change our perception about a certain situation and make that change and start moving forward, which is really important to take on board. So we've got various ways we can do behavioural experiment. I'm going to go into more detail of these different ways to do that. But before we do anything else, what I want to do is get something clear. First of all, let's examine assumptions and beliefs and what we are with that. Assumptions, beliefs, and this is sort of going off piece a little bit, but let's have a look and say, okay, if I was to get a tape measure and measure the distance from one side of the room to the other side of the room, and as I pull the tape measure out, it said 10 meters. Is that fact or opinion? Okay, it's fact. Well, as far as we know, it's fact. Like the Earth being round, as far as we know, it's fact, isn't it? Okay, if I said from there to the other side of the room, it's a long way. Is that fact or opinion? That's opinion, okay? If I said this water tastes fantastic, is that fact or opinion? Well, it's my opinion. It's not fact, it's my opinion. You might think otherwise. If I said these cookies taste fabulous, is that fact or opinion? That is fact, by the way. That is fact. No, it's an opinion, isn't it? Okay? So we want to clarify that, and most of the time the assumptions that we have are based, like we said earlier, our own experience. They are, for the greater good, their own assumption. That assumption impacts our behaviour and forms a sense of reality. By changing that, we have a whole different experience. So we can reduce things like anxiety, we can moderate our depression, we can moderate our OCD, we can really make an impact on various behaviours for experience and discovery, okay? Because for the most part, for the greater good, certain things, they're assumptions, they're their own reality. Beliefs create our reality in the sense that what we believe to be true is generally true. If we believe that we're good at something, then we'll find supporting evidence. The way memory processes, we have selective memory. If we believe that we're not good at something, then generally we'll find reasons to support that case in point. And many years ago I was working with a model, and she had this belief that she was ugly. She said that she was ugly in the eyes of corporation. That was her belief. Now, is that fact? Is his opinion? In her mind, she went into the career of modelling to gain validation because she was bullied as a young person, and she felt by getting jobs it would validate her appearance. But all that said and done, she felt in her mind that she still, no matter what people said, her selective attention would go to the association she had to her appearance from when she was very young, and she would feel, and it was like a mask she would wear on the outside. So inside she was really suffering and was really hurting. And I worked with her on identity and other things, and she'd improved and got better. But to cut a long story short, if one person said to her, if 100 people said you look really well, she'd literally delete that. If one person says I didn't like the colour of his shoes, she'd kind of stew on that and ruminate and cycle those thoughts. Now, going forward, if memory being selective in the way it is, it's quite powerful. It's quite powerful in the sense that we can train the mind. Because what is true, what is reality? We give the world meaning anyway. Nothing, we're going to get all esoteric. We give the world meaning anyway. Nothing means anything other than the meaning we give it. That's another story for another day. We don't get too complex at this point here. So we can, through discovery and experience, and help to challenge beliefs that we might have. And then we can look at alternative ways to see things. And by seeing things alternatively, our whole reality begins to change in various ways. So going forward, what I want you to do, another exercise that will help you understand the process and embed that. Think of some beliefs that you have that are given. Or at least think of one belief that you are certain about. Take one belief that you are certain is true. That could be you're certain you can drive a car. There'll be a point in your life when you weren't certain you can drive a car. If you drive now and you've done it for a while, take that belief, or a belief, it might be something to do with your job, your appearance, whatever. Take one belief, a belief that works for you, okay, and write it down. Please write it down. Now, the alternative to that, take a belief that in your own mind you'd like to change. So the belief could be, for example, you're setting a business up and you think, okay, money is the root to all evil, so to speak, and take a belief, whatever it might be, that's not serving you no more, and write it down and hold that thought, and we can come back to it later on as we go forward. Now, the key in the behavioral experiment is the hypothesis testing, and we talked about that before in the prediction, hypothesis A, but also we can then look at the alternative way of seeing it, and then we can compare A versus B, and that helps us to elaborate the formulation, and also helps the client socialize themselves to the CBT model. So in the case of the person I mentioned before about checking the moles, the person I mentioned, okay, they're checking the moles, okay, and we can design the experiment around them checking the moles a certain number of times, and then we can assess them checking it, say, 3 times a day, and we can see the intensity of the anxiety, and then we can design a process where they check it more frequently and see how the anxiety is. And then we can look at both situations, and we can also make the judgment in the formulation that maybe when it's warm, when it's hot, when it's really, really hot, and it's getting warmer now, we're meant to have some great spring weather coming up, when it's hot, doesn't make a difference in their perception of whether the mole could lead to cancer. And then we can sort of use all that information, and with that information, we can help moderate the existing belief and also help develop the more adaptive belief. But also what you can do, which is quite significant as well, is help the client realize that the checking the moles is a safety behavior. They're doing it for what we call is a safety behavior. They become aware of it. Then the more aware they are of it, the more likely we have that they can moderate the belief and build a more adaptive belief, and so on and so forth. Now, there are, and I mentioned different ways to do the experiment. We've got active experiments, and active experiments involve the client taking the lead role. So the client takes the lead role as both the doer, okay, and the observer. Okay, the doer and the observer. We've got simulations, and simulations are useful if the client is unwilling to make a real life change or situation, for example, is rare, or where a range of options are needed to be explored. So that's where we would use the simulation. Real life, the client puts things in action. In the big wide world, they go out there and they put things in action. Now we also model, and the client can model. So the client might model the therapist. So the client might be, and this is quite useful with phobic experiences. The client might have a phobia of walking through a park, or it could be walking past a beehive. Obviously that could be a dangerous thing to do, but it all depends in that situation. It could be a spider, and they could model the therapist in that situation and see, and that's a useful way to do modeling. Surveys are quite useful too. So the client or therapist can test a hypothesis by using a survey. So you could ask people, for example, if someone thinks it's dangerous to go outside after 6 o'clock in the evening, this is just an example. What they could do is survey people in the, now obviously you've got to take into consideration, depends what the location is and all these things, and we're going to talk about that in the next seminar, in designing an experiment. Obviously there's certain places in the world, no doubt, at any time during the day it might be dangerous, but let's say all things being well, it's just a leafy suburb, general town, the incidence of crime is quite low anyway, it's a nice spring evening, doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock anyway, or till some evening. And you could do a survey, and in the survey could be asking people what their thoughts are about going out in the evening, and if it's dangerous to go out in the evening. Obviously with that, you've got to take into consideration that people could respond in a negative way, people being the way they are. There might have been an incident that happened there, and they sort of focus on that because of big reality. So you might ask a series of questions that, have you been outside after 6 o'clock? And having been outside after 6 o'clock, did you get attacked? And they say no, and 10 people say the same thing, and that's a good way for the survey. And you've got to, when you do a survey, be quite mindful, and we'll touch on this in future seminars, because you might knock on someone's door and say, do you think it's dangerous to go out at a certain time? And they might say, yes it is, of course it's dangerous, do you not watch the news these days? So you might say, how often have you been out? And having been out, I've been out thousands of times, and I've always been fine. And that helps, obviously. And then you could say, okay, also another way of doing a survey is looking for information on the internet. The internet, really, I would say, the danger of looking at the internet, I suppose you'll always find supporting evidence one way or the other. So sometimes what you read on the internet, and getting someone to do research on the internet is not always a good thing, because it might actually reinforce the negative condition they have already anyway. So do bear that in mind going forward. That's for sure. So they're generally the different ways we can do the experiment, so to speak. Now, I think with all these things, I think it's really important to make sure you individualize it and also just take it step by step. So what I do as a therapist is I wouldn't put anyone in the deep end. Now, let's say, for example, you're going to go surfing for the first time. You haven't been surfing before. It probably wouldn't be a good idea to go 1,000,000 miles out to sea, okay, and start surfing with these huge waves. You've not done it before, and you're not a strong swimmer, so you might want to sort of stay close to the shore, smaller waves. So as a therapist, for me, what I tend to do, yeah, there we go. As a therapist, what I tend to do is I do still work on, albeit the philosophy of sink or swim for me, jumping out of the deep end isn't always a good idea. So we can still work on incremental change where we don't have to go completely out of our comfort zone, where we push ourselves and become more frightened and we can't tolerate the experiment. It's just step by step, and this will happen in the planning stage, which we'll talk about in a future seminar. So incremental change is good. Rather than take one big step forward and two back, take one step, and have that incremental change, and then you're on the way, which is quite useful. And you can do that by highly individualizing the actual experiment itself. Because the key for me is the person has to be able to tolerate the experience. So an example might be, if you were going to do modeling and the person had a fear of spiders, for example, now if they had that fear of spiders, you might put initially a toy spider on your arm and see if they can handle that. And then you can sort of move forward and so on and so forth. And you can sort of construct the condition, the prediction that they have, the feelings, rate the intensity of the emotion, of the anxiety, alternate hypothesis, okay, it's only a toy, it's not going to do any harm, rate that intensity, and then you can design the experiment in the sense that you can compare and contrast both, hypothesize, and going forward, a way to moderate the original belief and then moderate, and then you can sort of help develop the adaptive belief. Going forward, then you could maybe move it on to, so you could do that, and that is, I suppose, along the lines of exposure more than experiment. But sometimes you've got to be sensible as well, or you have to be sensible anyway, to not push people at the point they're not comfortable with, which is key. So the point we're looking is checking the validity of the person's beliefs. Now, beliefs, for the greatest part, or one of the key aspects of beliefs, we tend to model beliefs, and we tend to model beliefs the world around us, and the beliefs we have, we tend to reinforce existing beliefs by seeing people, and sometimes associating with people that have similar or the same beliefs. So, for example, if your parents jumped in the air, they saw a spider, there's a very good chance you would model that belief, that spiders are dangerous. Now, they are in certain countries, no doubt. We I grew up, they were dangerous, and they're not as dangerous in the UK and other parts of the world. Yeah, all that said and done, we do model beliefs, and beliefs are experiential. So it is important that to take that in consideration as well. We do model beliefs, but also experience and exposure to certain situations for our life has a big impact in terms of how we shape our reality, which is really important. What I want to do is a brief exercise with you now. What I would like you to do, if you've got your pen and paper handy, I want you now to follow this exercise. If you're struggling to complete the exercise now, it's okay. You can do it at a later time. It's entirely up to you. But what I'm going to do is guide you through it. If you want the worksheet, email me and I'll send you the worksheet and you can work on it. But what I'd like to do is just to gel all that we've covered so far in a short time, gel it all together, and then we can gel all this together and move this forward into the next session we do on this area, and then we can sort of link one learning with the other learning, and we can then begin to understand. So we're working on the basis of planning, experience, observe, reflection as well, and it's a great way to learn and learn from association. So with pen and paper handy, I want to state an assumption or a belief that we mentioned earlier, for example, one that doesn't need anything major, but one you'd like to moderate. You'd like to moderate, okay? It could be anything. It could be about your appearance, it could be about someone wanting to go out with you, it could be about going out, someone wanting to dance with you, and no one will want to dance with you, but ask them to dance. It could be it's dangerous to go. Obviously, with all that said and done, it's really important, and we'll touch on that in a future episode, to bear all the considerations that go with it too. If it is dangerous to go to that place, then it is what it is. If it is not comfortable for you to moderate, it is using it for an exercise. So take an assumption that you might have or a belief and make it into a statement. like I mentioned earlier before. And statement B, the condition is the world is very unfair, and the prediction was every time I do something for someone, they always ignore me or treat me badly. So put it into a statement. Okay, so take the belief, the condition. Example, the world is a negative place, the world is an unfair place. The condition, first step. Step 1, write it down, whatever it is that is in your mind. Then the prediction. So if the condition was the world is very unfair, step 2, the prediction is every time I do something nice to someone, they always ignore me or treat me badly. So then have your statement. So every time I ask someone to go on a date, they say no. If they do say yes because they are doing it for a favour, whatever. Just turn the statement. It doesn't have to be, I wouldn't be too concerned about this for now. It's not important. You can develop the skill as you do. And just like when you first learn to drive the first time, it's conscious competence, conscious awareness, first gear, second gear stall, and now you can do it automatically. Now it rates the strength of the belief or in the prediction. So in the sense that every time I do something well for someone, nice to someone, they ignore me or treat me badly, between 0 and 100, 70%. Now it rates it, rate the strength from the prediction. Okay, write it down. Now how have you written it down? Develop an alternate hypothesis. So for example, in this situation, it was the alternate every time I do something nice for someone, they always ignore me or treat me badly. It was when I do something nice for someone, 50% will acknowledge and thank me, and then you can rate the strength in the alternate belief, and that could be, say, 40%. So have an alternate to that, okay, and write it down, a different way of seeing it, okay, if you can do that, please. And then you can sort of explore, and in your piece of homework is to go away and explore how you might put a behavioural experiment together which is based on the validity of the belief and developing more adaptive beliefs, moderating the negative condition and reinforcing the adaptive belief assumption we'd like to reinforce. So in this situation, we identified, I mentioned earlier, 5 nice things to do for people. So you could open a door, you could let someone change lane, you could stop and let someone go out their driveway, carry a shopping bag, and so on and so forth. 15 people, the way we'd measure the protocol was smiling and thank you, and that helped moderate the original prediction significantly less, probably about say 10-15%. Yes, there were people in the world but then there were people in the world that they might be preoccupied with something else in their mind. They might not smile, they might not be thank you, because they've got other things going on in their life. They might not have other things going on in their life, but they might have things going on in their life and they're just not with it. They're not there. They could have personal problems, and we all, none of us are perfect, and all of us are human beings, and I think that we really need to have more compassion for people in certain situations. But all that said and done, it sort of demonstrates that we can moderate that, and by moderating it, the world becomes a different place. You're not stewing away, and you're not getting angry and anxious about every person who doesn't smile or say thank you. You kind of accept that some people have got things going on in their life, and for the most part, the new adaptive belief, we've strengthened that significantly, because you know people do say thank you and are happy and are pleased, and then you're more likely to do nice things for people because you realise that people do appreciate it. So you have a new reality. Your perception of the world is different to what it was originally. You're in a happier place, you feel better about doing things for people as a positive knock-on effect. So you can sort of go away and explore a way. So sort of to reinforce that process, so you can write down a negative condition, then you could write it down as a statement, as a prediction, and then you can rate it between 0 and 100, 100 being high, and then you can do an alternate hypothesize, 0 to 100 being high, and then look at a way to design a behavioural experiment. Now, like I said earlier before, I wouldn't stew over all this sort of stuff and watch it a couple of times and get your head around it. We are going to do follow-up sessions because it is a broad area, a big area, and certainly in the time we've got tonight, we're not going to cover all of it. So I am going to do future sessions as well. They go into more depth and more detail and we'll know the key points, and we'll really encourage the learning. And I always say to people, you know, learn at your own pace. That's the key to all of it. Just like learning to drive a car, some people learn faster, quicker, so on and so forth, some have more time to dedicate themselves. But in the end, it's about running your own race. And what you put in, you get out. I do encourage you to go out there. You know, there's plenty of good stuff out there. You can read books and so on and so forth. And by all means, you can email me. I've got loads of materials you can use, and I'm more than happy to share with you. So do give it a go. I've really enjoyed this evening. It's been a fantastic evening. Thank you everybody for joining in. It's been a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. And do get in touch. It's Jimmy Petruzzi. That's info at excelwithnlp.com. That's info at excelwithnlp.com. If you require any resources or you got any questions that we covered tonight, thanks again. Have a fantastic evening and spread the love. Thank you.